Oh, we're here. Okay.
Hello. How are you? It is snowy here.
It is gross here, is what it really is.
Yeah, we have the start of the bomb cyclone, winter storm Wesley, or I don't know.
It's probably Wesley.
But Wesley is Princess Bride, so I choose to say Wesley.
What is your Princess Bride?
What?
Isn't that on Princess Bride where he says his name? I am blah 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 Montoya.
Oh, yeah, Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
You're always so serious. I love it when you say that. That's funny.
You have to. He's he's looking for the six-fingered man.
Yes. Okay, well.
So hi, how's it going?
Enough that.
Yeah, fun. So anyway, the reason I mentioned the bad weather is we might have kids calling and things might come up. So we'll try to minimize. We're shutting off ringers as we speak here. Everyone's fine, but they're home alone. You know how that goes. Okay, so announcements.
Welcome.
Oh, that's right. We got a lot of new people.
To those of you who are new to our group, mostly probably people from Aberdeen Women's Business Conference and some from some other places. We are happy to have you here.
Awesome, for sure. And to our old standbys, I see Katie and Terry are on. Hi, ladies. So that's awesome to have everybody. Our group is going to be growing quickly, so there's lots of people sort of I just noticed before we came on live that we had 13 people waiting to get accepted. So we've got lots of people waiting to come on too. So hopefully they'll be on for next week. Another change that we were requested actually is to send out an email reminder of when we're going to do the lives and the topics so that people know to jump on or to at least check it out after the fact. So you'll be seeing kind of an uptick in emails. So hopefully that's not annoying. Hopefully we'll give you something to actually, it's some value in that way. It won't be. I should probably introduce myself because people at Aberdeen and some of your other events have never met me. I didn't think about that. Hi, I'm Rachel Headley. I'm part of the Rose Group International. So Meg, as brilliant as she is amazing, I'm her counterpart in the company, and we kind of came up with all the stuff together. So it's great to meet you.
Yeah. Rachel's wonderful. You all know her by story because I told lots of stories about how dynamic our relationship is.
Is that jazz hands dynamic?
Jazz hands dynamic. I told them the story about the suitcase. Your wretched, well-traveled suitcase.
And the really sad part about that damn suitcase is I am going to have to actually get a new suitcase. And every time I think about it, I think Meg's going to be so happy when this happens. Damn it.
I win.
You actually manifested that because when my suitcase was trapped in Paris for 11 days, it got beat up. And so like now the thing won't actually, like the little extendy thing won't come out, and it's really even in sadder shape than it was.
I'm sorry to hear this.
You're such a liar.
We'll have a moment of silence for said suitcase.
You couldn't even keep a straight face.
No, I can't.
You can't keep a straight face.
I'm so excited for you to get rid of that suitcase.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited to get rid of it too. Okay, so what's our announcements? We usually start with announcements.
Do we have any announcements? I don't know. Here's one for anyone who lives in the Black Hills area or would love to travel. Barb, don't encourage her. Would love to travel to the Black Hills of South Dakota a time or two over the summer. You should register for the SDCEO Women in Leadership courses. They start at the end of May, and then you have another one in June, and then you graduate in October.
At the Women in Business Conference.
That's right.
In Deadwood.
That's right. It's a great opportunity to meet really great people, learn lots of interesting new concepts. Rachel and I actually volunteer to facilitate a couple of the sessions. So if you're looking for your next opportunity in that sort of professional development, then you should definitely sign up for that. It's on SDCEO's Facebook page, website. You can find it wherever you can find them.
we are not reimbursed for that commercial. That's just because we think it's amazing.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, we're not sponsored. We're not paid sponsored.
Although we should look into that, I think. Yeah, wouldn't be a bad idea. But we are big fans. The other thing for training opportunities is we have, I'm doing a training in May, I think the week of May 20th, and that's project management and guiding organizational change. So if you're in a big organization or even in a small one and you want more, someone's really experimenting with the emojicons.
Good.
I love it. If you have any interest in developing your skills around project management, how to actually take a big project and cut it up into pieces and actually figure out how to get it done on budget and on time, that's a little more, it's very much project management speak. It's a lot less about humans and much more about actually how do you build a schedule and how do you create an activity list and that kind of stuff. How do you assign resources to it? That's coming up in May. That's also in Rapid City, but we live in a beautiful place, so you might as well come and stay. That's the project management training camp is Monday, Tuesday, and then guiding organizational change is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of that week. So, and I will just be back from Europe, so I'll probably be like this
and have lots of great stories to tell.
Total zombie, but yes, it'll be very fun. And we do a lot of work with Ellsworth, and so there'll be a lot of base personnel there. That's who we primarily serve, but we're also open to the public. So we would love to have some amazing people in there. So.
And for those of you who are new, who don't know, or folks who are just signing on, or just don't know a lot about the other way we work with people, particularly individuals, we offer online education in IX leadership. So there's IXA, which is IX Ambassador, and then there's IXAF, which is IX Ambassador Facilitator. So if you want more information about that, how to learn how to be a solid IX leader and deliver that theory and explain to other people how all of it works, let one of us know. We'd be happy to tell you more about those opportunities and how you can get signed up for a course for certification in IX leadership.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to mention, because what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk a little bit about culture types, and thank you for all of your input and suggestions and voting. But we're going to talk about culture types and answer some of your questions. But the other thing we're going to talk about is that we don't really talk about unless we're facilitating is how powerful the culture types are in a group dynamic. And we're going to show you one of our products from that, which is basically a scatter plot. And all of you know your culture type, or if you don't, go take the test. Most of you know what it is. And I'm a fixer, by the way.
I'm an independent. I'm listening to you.
Okay. And good. And so, but what we do with organizations is like we'll culture type an entire team or an executive team or all the frontline supervisors, and then we can start looking at where some of the challenges might be and where some of the conflicts might be, and how to think about, actually we all need each other. The people that are order tolerant brethren need the chaos people in their life to, inject a little bit of change and dynamic, direction. But then, of course, the chaos people need those people that can actually get some stuff off the to-do list and actually stay focused on the details and how to move from here to there. And so we need each other, but it's really hard to know how to work together sometimes. And so that's really what we do for companies. And so we thought we'll talk a little bit about culture types, but we'll also dig a little bit more into how we use it in a group or a team. So
yeah, cool.
Do you want to start with culture type generic, or should we just throw up the scatter plot and assume that
everybody who's new here, as long as most of them are from Aberdeen, they got a pretty good dose of what that all looks like. So I say we throw up the scatter plot and
okay, and then we can answer, some of the questions will be answered by that. So if you go to our Facebook feed, I just before this posted 2 pictures. One is a PR firm graphic, and one is a frontline supervisor scatter plot. So I took a picture of the PR firm one so we could look at it, but I don't think I have one, but we know the other one pretty well. So what we see here on the PR firm, and so I'll give you a second to bring it up. I will see if this shows up. It should look like that. There's a little window reflection. And so what we do is we take everybody, oh, see, look, my phone's dying. Close. So what we do is we take everybody and we plot them out on the scatter plot. And so remember, the upper left is fixer, the top half is chaos, and then the bottom half is order, and then the left half is socially driven, and the right half, or team driven, and the right half is self-driven. And so upper left is fixer, lower left is stabilizer, lower right is organizer. Upper right is independent. So what you see on the PR firm graphic is that they have people that are, Andy is very chaos oriented, but he's a deep fixer. So he's chaos oriented, but he also is team and focuses on team. And then you have like Kira on the bottom right, who she's a deep organizer, who is totally independent, self-driven and independent, and very orderly. And so the interesting thing about this graphic is that Kira hates working with everybody, and everyone knows it, and everyone hates working with her. And come to find out, it's because she's very orderly, and most of these people are chaotic, and so they have a hard time interacting together. Kira is one of those people that will put out a 15-page report, and Andy needs to know something on page 5, but Andy doesn't read reports. You know, chaos people, they're not going to read a 15-page report. You'll be lucky if they skim through it. So then what happens is Andy's like, well, whatever happened to this thing? And Kira's like, well, it was on page 5 in the report. And neither of them are doing anything intentionally to piss each other off. They just see the world differently. So Kira legitimately thinks that Andy's going to read her 15-page report. And Andy looks at that 15-page report and says, there's no way she expects me to read this. So it's just a totally different way to see the world. And so right away, we can say, okay, Kira, when Kira sends that out, knowing that most people are chaos people in her office, she should embed in the email 3 takeaways, or the 3 main points, or the 1 graphic that she wants to make sure everyone sees. And then if Andy receives that email and doesn't really see that or understand what she means, he could text her or walk over to her office and say, hey, Kira, what is the one thing you want me to take out of this report? Because it's really incumbent on both parties to figure out how to work together, right? And so right away, this group said it changed the way that they interacted immediately by seeing that scatter plot. And that's part of the power of what we do.
Yeah, the scatter plot also is on a scale of plus, is it 40 or 50? Plus
it's
50,
yeah.
Plus 50, so the very middle is 0, and then minus 50, and it's that way going horizontally as well. And so the magic of the scatter plot is that it really helps the individual understand who they are like and who they are different, and it helps the team understand where they are in relation to each other. And so when you introduce this scatter plot into a team of people who are working together, and you have somebody says, well, Greg is way up in this corner and I'm way down in this corner, what does that mean? You say, well, it means you see the world in a very different way, and that, if you're a stabilizer and Greg is an independent, then Greg probably does things a little bit willy-nilly for your taste, and it sort of drives you a little bit crazy. But now that you know this, it's not about Greg, and it's not about you. It's about your work preferences and the way you do business, the way you operate. And the magic of it is that once you understand that about the different people on your team, and generally how your team operates based on culture type, you waste a lot less energy worrying about whether or not someone likes you, or worrying about whether or not you've hurt someone's feelings,
right,
or worrying about whether or not you're actually, for those of you who are with me on the self-driven side of the graph, you're constantly thinking, oh my gosh, did I make somebody mad? Okay.
By accident.
By accident.
Right.
Was I too abrasive? That's when I have gotten a lot in my work history. I know, I couldn't imagine.
What?
And was I too abrasive? Was I too abrupt? Was I too trying to get things done? What's happening?
Nothing, it's just doing the things.
Okay.
Carry on.
Okay. Trying to get things done too quickly. So it sort of cuts through all of that, and it helps you say to yourself, oh yeah, okay, no, I just have to think about what that other person is thinking about. Takes you out of your own head. Then it helps you with that. It's not about me. It's about you or us or whatever. It's not about me. Use the Mad Hatter principle to get through some of that, and it's like magic.
It really works amazing. The cool thing about it too is that it takes how I say it is that it takes your ego out of it. So if Meg does something that drives me crazy, I don't have to think, oh, she's mad at me, or what did I do that made her mad at me, or whatever. Like, I just know she's freaking crazy. So it doesn't, it takes me out of it. And so things like she was teaching a class, and she was literally, yeah, see, too blunt sometimes. Yeah, Barb's on board. Meg was literally walking out the door to do a class, and she was grabbing shit as on the way out the door. And
Shelley can attest to this.
Shelley can attest to this as a common way that Meg does business. Mm-hmm. And I remember, this was actually quite a while ago, and I've never told you this story. So I am not that much more organized, but I'm a little bit more organized because I'm a fixer. And so my goal, I think I'm chaotic, but I worry about people a lot more. Meg's just like, whatever, it'll be fine. And I worry about, well, if I don't have this, then they might not have as good of a whatever. And so then I tend to be a little more organized or around other people's stuff. And so, but anyway, Meg was going out the door and doing all those crazy things. And I literally said, I don't have to fix this as a fixer. This is just how Meg operates. And she kicks ass at all of the things that she does. And she's amazing. And it doesn't matter, because to her, chaos is a normal state of being. Now, if I was chaotic, I might not deliver the training as well as she did, and as she would. But she's normal. But for me, if I am chaotic, then I get anxious. But she doesn't. She's like, that's her state of being. So I just literally said, this is not a thing to be fixed. And it was true. And you do it every time. And I'm not going to change it anyway. So it's really a gift to yourself in a lot of ways, frankly, to know that Meg is just always going to be a little bit crazy. Like, she's going to call me 20 minutes before she goes on stage and tell me that she can't figure out how to work the camera.
Hey, listen. I just assumed it would be so simple.
I know, you're adorable. And so I know this about her, but she's still amazing. And because it's not and she's amazing. And so that's the trick. It's a gift to me, because I don't have to sit there and worry about, oh my God, she's not doing the things that I would do, blah, 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 and whatever. She'll never do the things the way I do. And that's why she's amazing. And so it's really a gift to give yourself that permission to not try to force everyone into your way of thinking, because that's what we all would tend to do. Well, if it's not the way I would do it, it must be wrong, or it must not be as good. And frankly, it's really awesome to say, you know what, that's just how Meg is. And I don't have to worry about it.
Just so you know, the other end of that story where I called her 20 minutes before I was going on stage, I have learned to say things like, if we don't fix this, it is not going to ruin my presentation or my day. But if you have 5 minutes, can you walk me through how this technology might work?
Yes.
Because for the love of God, I can't figure it out. And so then Rachel knows, okay, this is not critical. So if we don't fix the problem, it'll be fine.
I will sleep that night anyway.
Yeah. This is just Meg being her normal self and not adding any extra time for error.
For anything.
Basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and this is part of the magic of the really chaotic people, is that they can just roll with it, right? There's a lot of people that can't just, whatever happens, just roll with it and make it amazing. There's a lot of people that get really anxious when things aren't planned, and that's just their zone of genius. And Meg just operates in a different way. So it's really awesome, frankly. Let's see. The other thing I guess I'll point out on this PR firm graphic before we move on to the next one is that there are no independents. And a bit like a ranching couple.
That's right. So Barb, here's a little story about Barb.
Tell me about Barb.
Barb's brother's sister lives
Barb's
in Harding.
brother's sister. That'd be her
No,
sister.
sorry, Barb's husband's sister.
Okay, sister-in-law.
Lives in Harding County. Anyway, Dan Olson, the principal,
Yeah.
is like it's all related.
Shirt tail.
Anyway, yeah.
Or something.
So we have that in common.
6
They're
degrees of
ranchers.
separation.
Yeah,
I like it.
they do cutting, and
Okay.
this family out here did rodeo, steer wrestling, and whatever things. And so Barb and I met, and we know a lot of the same people.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Anyway,
It is, South Dakota's only 700,000 people. We are probably related to everybody.
yeah.
So.
Well, when you say it like that,
Awesome. Okay, so one of the things I want to point out about the PR firm is there's no independence. And there's a couple things going on here. One, I think that Jeffrey, who is showing up as a fixer, is really more independent than this. And so he's probably he should probably actually be snuck over into the independent side. He's always thinking about pivoting, how they can, he's the CEO. So he's always thinking about pivoting and taking advantage of a new market opportunity, all this stuff. And so he'll run into the room and say, oh my God, we have this new opportunity, and throw it over the fence and run away. And then his people are supposed to figure out how to take care of it or make it work. And he's very clear that that's their job. And so I think he's a little bit more on the independent. He does have a big heart and really cares about a lot of things, a lot of people, and a lot of mission, like sort of mission driven, but the way he behaves is a little bit independent. So frankly, I think in this case, and they said it in the meeting, that Jeff, as the CEO, would not put up with an independent employee, because independent employees want to shake things up and they want to do things differently, and they'd push him to do things in a different way than what he wanted to. And he's just not interested in any of that. So I think they, by design, don't have any employees that are independents, but also I think Jeff himself is a little more independent than he shows up here. So that's part of the tricky part about the assessment. When you do any assessment, is that there's always sort of embedded biases, right? So we all think, or most of us think, that being adaptable is more important than being organized, because right now adaptability is kind of a buzzword, is kind of a, talked about as a great, what am I trying to say? Skill,
technique,
leadership, personality trait, whatever it is. Yeah, the good leaders are adaptable. And so what we find is people tend to cheat a little bit chaotic, even though they really aren't. And also to cheat team, frankly, because you don't want to be, a lot of us don't want to be seen as an outsider or as independent or whatever, or as self-driven. That feels somehow selfish, and that people don't like that idea. So I think they tend to cheat team and cheat chaos. So there's always a little bit of that, but most of the time it's pretty freaking right on, I think. Yeah. One story I was going to tell was about Meg was running out to do a training session, a half day, with a company here locally, and one person needed some kind of email support, email training. They said communication training, basically. And turns out they had one organizer on their team. And guess who was the one that needed some email etiquette training? The organizer. And so it's so great when our scatter plots work and we're like, hey, what's that guy's name that's the guy that needs the communication thing? Whatever. Bill. And I'm like, he's the one. So anyway, it's really amazing when because it works so well.
Yeah, and I think one question I've been getting a lot lately about folks who are on the self-driven side of the graph is, well, actually, the way it was framed to me in one session was, do you think I think this is what it was. Do you think they're a little bit, more narcissistic? Like they care more about themselves. Yeah, self-centered, selfish, care more about themselves than the team. And no is the short answer. It's not that they care more about themselves. It's that they like the opportunity to process information by themselves first. So it really doesn't have anything to do with their personality. It has a lot more to do with their preference for processing information. Mm-hmm. So if Rachel comes in and she throws a big idea on the table and she's like, hey, what do you think about this? Let's go do it. I practice saying, okay, but sometimes that serves, I can do that a little bit because I'm independent and
right.
Tolerate some chaos. But if I really need some time to think about it, I say, yeah, let me think about it. I'm going to go for a run, and then I'll come back and let's talk about it. Do you have an hour this afternoon? And so it's not that I don't want to sit and have a whiteboarding chat with Rachel at that moment. It's that I want a chance to go think about what it really means and kind of pick apart the details. So I think a lot of people really want to use the culture type system to assess personality, and that's not the intention of it. It's really to understand people's work preferences. People who are self-driven are not narcissists. Now, we do have what I call the asshole clause, and so there's some people who actually are having bad behavior. And
it happens all over.
Yeah, and it happens in all 4 quadrants, from the deep corners to the very middle. So there are going to be people that you either have worked with in your past, are working with now, or will work with in your future, who fall under the category of, the asshole clause. But by and large, nobody's a narcissist. Stabilizers on the other end of the spectrum, they're not just people pleasers because they can't handle because they're so scared of everything or scared of people. They actually prefer not to have to process conflict, and they do want people to get along. And so that's why they seek out those details and seek out order, because if there's order, then you have an opportunity to make sense of whatever conflict there is. So if people are fairly operating in the culture type system, you really shouldn't have to assess for personality.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you mentioned behavior, and I think there's a lot of behavior that comes out sort of sideways when people are either operating in an environment that they're not comfortable in, or they're being put upon so if I'm a fixer and I'm dealing with stabilizers or order tolerant people, sometimes that's really hard for me, and that makes me a little crazy. So I might not behave in the best way if stabilizers are driving me crazy. I'm way better at it now because we've been practicing like crazy about it. And same way with the other way, like if there's a stabilizers and they're being pushed to be more chaotic, they might actually behave badly. And it's not because they're being jerks, it's because they don't know how to interface with the chaos, right? So I was just talking to a friend of mine who's working with a CIO, Chief Information Officer, probably a software engineer or some kind of engineer, and she is a consultant and is bringing in a new way of doing projects, and that is very chaotic, and he is probably very stable, and he can't engage with her. Like, he has to kind of turn away from her and take notes on his computer and not like look at her, because he's just can't engage. So she was calling me saying, this guy is a jackass. He's ignoring me, treating me, she really read it as, he doesn't think maybe it's something to do with I'm a woman, or maybe it's something to do with I'm the consultant. She didn't really know. And I'm like, well, it probably has nothing to do with you personally. It's probably more that you're the chaos and he is a stabilizer and he doesn't know how to interact with you. So my advice to her was, go sit down with him and talk to him about what you're doing, so he understands it, he has insight. Let him know that you're at his disposal. If he has a question, he can ask anytime, and that way that gives him a sense of control and understanding and insight into what this chaos is all about. Instead of just seeming like it's overwhelming chaos, she's going to give him a little window into what's going on so that he can feel more settled. And that is a huge gift to both parties, because now instead of her being pissed that he's being a jerk, she's trying to see past the symptoms to the root cause of what might be going on here. And it's probably not because he doesn't like strong women. It's probably because he's intimidated by the chaos. And so that's a really key thing to start understanding is, a lot of the behaviors are symptoms of some root thing that's really making people uncomfortable. And then you can kind of start digging into that stuff.
All right. You want to start? Should we start attacking the questions?
Sure. We may have answered some of them as we go here. But
we may have. I'm so excited. We had someone add their own question today. So we're going to start with that one.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Karen. Good job. If you ever want to add a question to the poll, please do so.
Very exciting.
Okay. Question is, how can I use my culture type to better adapt to other people's culture type without causing hurt feelings or cold shoulders? And that one has 4 votes, so there's lots of people wondering about that. Karen, I'm gonna guess you might be a stabilizer.
Or a fixer if she's team
Or a
driven.
fixer, yeah. So people who are on the team-driven side of the matrix are pretty interested in not hurting other people's feelings and how information that's being disseminated is affecting people, themselves included. Stabilizers especially, though, are almost always more worried about other folks and how it's affecting them than they even are themselves.
A lot of times they put other people before them.
Yeah,
for sure.
You know, and what happens in that situation, then they say, oh, well, Susie's a martyr. She's always so worried about everybody else. She never takes care of herself, this and that. And so that's just a symptom, as it were, of the way a stabilizer processes things. So how do you better adapt to other people's culture type? I think it's really understanding. You have to learn how that other culture type would think and then apply that logic to whatever the situation is. So how would they be processing that? So where if you're a fixer and you might be thinking about the people and a little bit of chaos, and that's okay, and that the chaos part doesn't really bother you, and you're thinking about how everybody's going to get through this change, and then the person that you're struggling with maybe is an organizer, and the organizer seems sort of detached and not interested in talking about what the change is, and they're going around and gathering up all this information, and you're thinking, we can't even use that right now. We can't use that to process anything right now, and geez, just come over here to this table so we can sit down and all visit about what this looks like. And so instead of being frustrated and thinking that they don't need what they have, assume they do need it to be comfortable. Think how they would think about what they need, and then start talking to them in that sense. So instead of saying, don't go out, gather that information, come over here, maybe go to their office where they're comfortable, or wherever they are that they're comfortable, and say, hey, what have you found out? While you've been collecting all this data, what have you found out, and how would it be helpful? Because I'm going to go to a meeting this afternoon. I'd really love to have your input. Then you're saying the same thing. It's not snarky and based in your preferences. It's based on what their preference is. And so that would be, I guess, my trick is kind of a walk a mile in their shoes sort of thing.
Yeah, and frankly, I say that you can use their culture type against them to the highest and best good of everybody. But in the sense of, like that CIO example I mentioned earlier, you know, my Heather is the woman I was talking to. Heather can go into his office and she wants to talk to him about doing some culture type analysis so they can have a better understanding of how their team dynamic and they're trying to grow and all that stuff. And so she said, I need a PowerPoint so I can go sit it, even though it's just him and I. He cannot brainstorm. Like, he wants to know what it would look like. Give me some examples. I want to know what worked for other people. This is how it would look. This is the way it would work. Like, he really needs all those details. So she knows if she goes in there brainstorming, that he's just going to like totally shut down. So if you really want to work together better and accomplish great things, leveraging each other's stuff, you really have to start thinking about, you know, knowing me, knowing them, and what is going to suit them. So I love that example that you had. So that's really a challenge, I would say, more for the self-driven people, because that's not their innate sort of headspace. But it's definitely possible, and it's something that you get a lot better with as you practice.
Oh, that made me think of something else.
Uh-oh.
What was it?
I don't know.
Working with people, meeting them where they are.
It's hard for independence.
Oh, I guess I thought about like 4 different things, and then, okay, well, we'll move on.
We'll move on. It'll come back. We'll use, okay, what are the 4 culture types? What does my culture type say about me? Well, I think you guys all know that, although 4 of you voted for this one. So the interesting thing is the more we work with teams on this, the more interesting and how pervasive and impactful it is. So like the guy that needed communication training is an organizer. He doesn't intuitively want to please other people. So he's more likely to send an email or have a conversation that feelings might get hurt. We see this a lot in CFOs, so chief finance officers, where they are organizers. And I was talking to a woman who they had a CFO and on their team, and he would come out and just be nasty to everybody on the table. They were going through a change and that stressed him out. And then so he would his behavior would be that he would sort of act out or be mean to people. And he didn't feel like that was a big deal in his heart because he doesn't think that way. And so he ended up leaving the company because he was so anxious about all of the chaos that he couldn't sort it out. But and we just talked to some other company recently whose CFO ended up walking because they were too chaotic and she couldn't sort of process all the stuff. So you can really start being very specific about being reflective and then seeing the other, what's going on with other people too.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great point, that not only is it about understanding other people and how so if I'm an independent and I don't understand exactly how a stabilizer might interact in a situation, it's good to know that. And part of helping that person and helping your team is understanding what you're doing, how your culture type is contributing. And if you have any unhealthy behaviors because you're not suited for the position you're in, or maybe you don't like change, or you don't get along really well with somebody that you're working with, whatever it is, think about what it is that you want to be able to manage better in your own culture type. And so as an independent, part of my struggle is, not being too chaotic. And so I do things like say to Rachel, hey, listen, this is an emergency. If you have 5 minutes and you can help me, that's great. Or if I'm going somewhere to talk to a group, I try really hard to have everything actually in my vehicle the night before. Like everything I don't need, makeup and whatever, like I try and pack everything the night before. And if there are things that I know I'm not good at, then I ask someone else to do them. Even, it doesn't mean I couldn't do it. It just means that if I'm supposed to design a website, yeah, right. I would never be like, okay, I'll do it. No, I would say, well, Rachel, there are 2 ways we can do this. Either you can do it if you have the time to contribute to it, which I would tell you you don't, or we can hire someone else to do it for us. But trying to have me do it is never going to work. And so I think there's, some really
even
important...
being the point of contact for a web designer.
I'm trying hard. But so I think there's a lot to be said for knowing yourself. And if you are a team-driven person and you find yourself a lot of times being frustrated with someone who's probably self-driven, even if you don't know what their culture type is, and you're feeling really frustrated with them and you think, oh, you just don't care about anybody. Well, here's my message. Get over it. They do not, and Rachel said it perfectly, they do not intuitively think about other people's feelings and desires and anything. It doesn't make them a jerk. It is what it is. And so if you pick your battles. If out of the 10 emails you get from a self-driven person, you get one that starts with a, hey, how are you? Hope you had a good weekend. Be happy.
High five.
Move on. And if you need more than that, then you have to be transparent and ask for what you need and offer what you can give. Okay, so did we answer that question enough?
I think so. I thought of something while you were saying that.
So this is happening today. This snow is so distracting.
We do have to call a full stop on the conversation. Sidebar. We forgot our most important announcement.
Oh yeah, well, I just didn't know if we were announcing it.
Well, of course.
Oh, okay. Okay, announce it.
You announce it. You.
Okay. I'm so nervous. I am very happy to announce that Shelley McCutcheon has agreed to join us on this wonderful and crazy adventure of changing the world and business globally. And so Shelley is our marketing coordinator and
slash business development slash amazing rock star.
Life accountant. It actually the word I have assigned, or the words I have assigned to Shelley's role in our business is she is our life accountant. Somebody who, like, we just dump a pile of crap in her lap and she makes magic out of it. You think, when you go to the accountant, you're like, there's no way they're going to take this shoebox full of receipts and make sense of it. And sure enough, they've got your taxes filed and there's money coming back. This is Shelley's magic. She is a life accountant. So,
well, really what she is a fixer.
This is true. So we are happy,
thrilled,
elated,
delighted
to have Shelley McCutcheon on board with us.
Yay. Okay, sorry. I was just like, it just struck me. I'm like, what? We totally forgot.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so back to the questions. How did you develop culture types? Well, really the story goes, I grew up through the satellite industry, and Meg grew up through logistics and mining. And super high tech. Her people are driving around 3-story high dump trucks. And we had the same challenges with our people. And so regardless of background, of level of education, of where you came from, of how much money you make, we kept seeing the same challenges between humans, didn't matter where. And so we started saying, well, what's really going on? And we took a look at all of the research that had already been done. I actually went back and read some of Carl Jung's original articles, which is like, let me tell you, he's a psychologist from the 1920s. Awful. I'm sure it's revelatory at the time and all things.
Fascinating.
No, it was horrible. But he was the one that came up with this idea that you could group people in general group, like you could
buckets.
Buckets. Like all of humanity falls into 12 buckets or whatever. And what we did is we looked, and that's what Myers-Briggs and DISC and all those things are based off of. The same kind of backstory, same kind of basic research stuff. But what we felt was missing was the piece about change and how that feels chaotic. And some people love that and some people hate it. And then there's also that team and self-driven feel where, our people are our most valuable asset and change is constant. Those are kind of the two basic premises. And how can we create environments at work where everybody can thrive and understand where each other's at? So that's kind of how we start.
What? I'm just having what's it called when you're thinking back? I'm having a nostalgic moment thinking about when we started to like actually put some lines down about what this meant and started creating a system. I remember we looked at each other and we're like, holy crap. What is happening right now? We're actually doing this thing. So
solving big, real problems.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, because of course, one of the things that we always struggled with was so much of the training in the world and the corporate training and leadership stuff, project management, all of that training, a lot of times doesn't really solve any problems. Like it's a lot of talking and a lot of, oh, interesting, I'm a extrovert.
Yeah.
Surprise. And so, but we felt like what's really missing is that team component because we're all working with other people. And so how do we figure out how to work better together? So that's really what we started working on. And then we actually changed a few things over time. Probably after we typed 1,000 people or so, we changed some more, like the stabilizer used to be called connector. But men seem to feel like that connector word was too weak or too not strong enough. And so we changed it to stabilizer, which sounds like a car part. And everyone think that's like everyone's cool.
I'll be the stabilizer.
I'll be a stabilizer. It's okay. And then, and the other thing was we changed some of the questions. Because what we did is after we had a lot of people take the quiz or the assessment, some questions just weren't differentiating people between chaos and order or team and self. Some people, like everyone would answer the question in the same way. So then it didn't really help us identify people. It would just muddy the results. So then we switched out some of the questions of the assessment. But by and large, it stayed essentially the same since we started. So
Yeah, and a lot of times people say, well, how did you develop? So from the Carl Jung archetypes all the way through Myers-Briggs, DISC, colors, strengths finders, we crosswalked a lot of those through our system. The reason we started down that path was to prove to ourselves that we created a system that could encompass all of those, and it didn't really matter where you landed in there. That your culture type is measuring a different thing. So you could be an extrovert in any of the four quadrants. And you could be a red or high D in any of the four quadrants. And so when we did that and we crosswalked it, we discovered that in fact that was true, based on taking the assessment different ways and seeing where those types would land. So once we sort of proved to ourselves, or proved our theory, we created the method around that. And I think the reason we were able to be successful with the way we developed, I mean, there were several iterations, but the reason we were able to be successful is because we had a very specific goal in mind. And that was to provide a solution for teams to understand the team dynamics and the individuals that fed into the team dynamics, and provide a solution not just for individual leaders, but for teams to understand each other and leaders to understand their teams. And so I think having that really specific goal helped us, it designed a lot of scope so that we knew what was in and what was out. This isn't working, that doesn't matter for what we're looking for. So we would realign with the objective and move on.
That's right. I forgot we did that. Yeah, because if you could simply take the Myers-Briggs types and plop them in a quadrant, then what's the point of making the new system? We could just say all of this group could be here and all this group could be there. So that was pretty cool. It didn't actually, it didn't neatly align. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
The last one, and the one that got a lot of love. How can I use my culture type to understand what kinds of work situations are right for me?
Well, I think the very first thing to know is you can do whatever the hell you want. Whatever you set your mind to, you can do. Now, that being said, there are places that we find that are much more suited and where we can thrive easier. If we're mismatched, you could do it, but it's harder and it's more stressful. So that being said.
Yeah, so as Rachel said, you can do anything you want to. Chances are you can do certain jobs that are not aligned with your culture type for less time before you start to fizzle out or go a little bit crazy. And so if you can imagine a job where you thought, oh my God, every day I come to work and I just wish the phone didn't ring as much and there wasn't as much chaos, and I don't know why, it's almost like people intentionally build chaos into our work environment just to see if everybody can handle it.
Sometimes they do.
And so if you're an order tolerant person, that sort of an environment, time after time, will wear on you and it won't feel good. And it makes you, and then everybody else, a lot of people around you are really happy on that team and they're loving it and they think it's great. So let's say you work in a marketing department for a big company and you're on the creative team and you're an order tolerant person. All those creative people every day are in there and they're throwing stuff up on the whiteboard and chatting and going for lunch and talking about things, and you're losing your mind. And when you look around and you think, all these other people are happy doing this, why can't I just be happy doing this? There must be something wrong with me. Probably not. It's probably that's not the kind of work that you're really well suited to or designed to love. Now, if you worked in that same marketing department, but not on the creative team, instead you worked on the marketing strategy team, where you get to pore over data and understand who's buying and where are they clicking and why do they care about that and what color schemes make sense and whatever all those details are, and you get excited about understanding that information, you could love that every day. And so I think once you know your culture type, it has a lot to do with your gut feel. What actually feels right to you and what do you not love? Sometimes it can be the people that you're around. Maybe they drive you crazy because they're chaotic, or drive you crazy because they're order tolerant. Maybe you don't really like people who always want to be teaming, and maybe you sit with a team of people and they all sit in an open concept office, but on their computer clicking away all day long, and I was in this situation once. I was like, what are you guys doing? Anybody want to chat? No kidding. All like a bunch of gophers poking their heads out of a hole. They'd all look up, look over at me, get kind of a disgusted, scrunched up face, and go back to their work. And I'm like, it is so quiet here. Do you guys ever listen to music? No, I did not. I could not survive in that situation.
Well, it was funny you mentioned open concept because, have you ever walked into one of those, like the reason open concepts offices, like the true open concept, like not even the gopher holes, but like literally you're all at open tables. If you ever wonder why those are at startup companies, because they're chaos people. You don't join a startup unless you're willing to put up with some chaos, right? But there's a lot of people that would walk into that office, turn on their heel, and walk right back out. And I was talking to somebody, I forget who it was now. They had an attorney brother or an attorney friend, I forget. And they work at one of these startup things, and he has a office with a door. That was that was the one condition he had to work for them, is that he needed a door. And not for legal reasons or privacy, just that he could not work in that environment. Because by and large, if you're gonna be a lawyer and spend your life studying case law and all of that junk, you're definitely gonna be on the order side of the graph. And he is, and she verified that he's definitely orderly. So, that even simple things like your work, the physical environment that you're expected to work in might not suit you.
Yeah.
Like having to come into the office every day.
I get a lot of stuff done in my own house.
I'm not saying you don't.
I know. Well, okay. What kind of work situations are right for me? I don't know. I feel like we did a pretty good job.
Yeah. So another way to think of it. So we actually work with a company that does hiring and what do you call it?
Recruitment.
Talent management. And so what we do is we look at a job and we identify what kind of job it is. So this is you can do for yourself, right? So is it something we're going to do relatively the same thing every day, and that's going to be predictable? And not that you want to be bored, but like you have a very defined set of duties. Or is it going to be 80% other duties as assigned, and you're just going to have to roll with whatever? So what I do is when you go into, if you were like, so let's say you're going to go interview for a job, you can actually ask questions so what kind of environment you're walking into. So how many new people are in? What is the retention rate? How long has the leader been in place? And will he or she be in place for much longer? Is this growing? Is there going to be a reorganization? Like you can ask a ton of questions about that organization and the work environment so that you have a better chance of actually getting a role that suits you.
Yeah, and if you're just starting out or either just starting out in your career or transitioning in your career maybe to a different industry or a different role, look at the job description and see, how many of the words, how much is 3 bullet points and other duties as assigned, 3 bullet points and other skills as
needed,
you learn or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably, you're going to be working for an organization and perhaps in a role that's probably a little chaos tolerant. And so you have to be ready for that. Or if it lists out, if you think about like an accountant, if you're hiring an accountant and there's literally 6 pages of you have to know how to do this and use this software and know these policies and procedures and government regulations and blah, blah, blah. That's an order tolerant job. I would have to throw up on myself every day in order to do that job.
But you could do it if you had to.
Yeah, I could do it. Maybe.
Yeah.
So I think looking at the job description, asking lots of questions, and ask people. Another good question you can ask is, what do you love about working for this company? So if you get answers like, oh man, we have I love the flexible schedule. We have freedom to, come into the conference room and whiteboard whenever we want to, blah, blah, blah.
We have pajama day on Fridays.
Yeah. I love the open concept, what office, then that's probably chaos tolerant. That's probably team driven. or if they say, well, I really like that every Monday morning we have a stand-up meeting, everybody reports on what they're doing for the week.
Everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah, we've got spreadsheets, this and that. And of course, that person has their own culture type, so they'll have different preferences, but it'll give you an idea of what's going on in the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Okay,
that's it.
That's all of them. We got it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for the new question, Karen.
Yeah. All right. Well, so today we talked about culture types. That's the whole first section of the book. For those of you who have just recently got a copy of the book. If you want another copy of the book, go out to Amazon and just look up.
We have new people that can give us reviews.
Oh, new people who can give us reviews. Please go to Amazon and review IX Leadership. Even if you haven't read I'll give you my speech. Even if you haven't read all the way through it, even if you haven't even read a little bit of it. If you've heard Meg and Rachel speak for 55 minutes, 50 seconds, and think that we have amazing things to offer the world,
right,
go give us a 5-star rating. You don't have to put words in it, just the 5 stars will do.
Yeah, the tough part is, so we have literally handed out or sold thousands of books, and we only have 15 reviews. And not that that's a problem in the sense of abstract, but what happens in Amazon, if you get to 100 reviews, you actually get bumped up their list of when people see you. And of course, our goal is to get this out to as many people as possible. So this is a really simple and fast way for you to help us do that.
Yes, because you're part of our X community now. So whatever serves us serves you.
Well, and frankly, if you're a fixer like me, it's all about helping everybody else. So.
Yeah, and if you're an independent like me, you want to be first. So get to it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Have a great week.
Lead powerfully.
Change the world. Bye.